A week before the deadline for the Vanguard Prize, the most prestigious competition in international architecture, I lower my pen. Who they called the field's most promising new talent, simply stopped drawing. A second later, my mentee Caleb's call came through, his voice already sharp with questions I didn't want to answer. I killed the call and let my mind go blank, the sterile quiet of the design lab pressing in. In my past life, on the day of a deadline, he accused me of plagiarism. He produced his own journals and digital logs, time-stamped a full day before mine. Chloe, the other junior I'd taken under my wing, stood right beside him, corroborating his story, telling everyone my genius was stolen from Caleb. He won the Vanguard Prize. I was blackballed from the industry, a pariah drowning in shame. The depression that followed was a thick, suffocating fog. But Caleb wasn't finished. He hired someone to break my hands, the tools of my trade, then had me stuffed in a sack and thrown into the East River. This time will be different. I picked up my phone, found my professor's number, and called him. I was forfeiting my spot in the competition. I wanted him to give it to Chloe. As for Caleb, let's see who he plagiarizes now. The drafting lamps cast a soft, focused glow over the studio. I was hunched over my desk, the graphite pencil whispering across the vellum, its lines weaving together, the blueprint taking shape in my mind. Suddenly, the overhead fluorescence flickered erratically, snapping me out of my trance. I looked around, disoriented, realizing I was back in the studio I'd spent countless nights in. My eyes fell to the design on the table, and a wave of shock, cold and electric, washed over me. It took my breath away. I'm alive. I've been reborn. I set the pencil down, my thoughts drifting. In grad school, Caleb Reed and I were both taken under the wing of the legendary Professor Albright. I was obsessed with the craft, constantly pushing the boundaries of form and function. After graduation, I went straight to work in Albright's exclusive studio, continuing my apprenticeship. Caleb, on the other hand, had started out just as hungry. But over time, the siren song of corporate money grew too loud for him to ignore. He became more interested in lucrative contracts than in artistic integrity. When he graduated, he found that without Albright's name behind him, the high-profile jobs he coveted were out of reach. By then, the professor wasn't taking on any new associates. Knowing I had Albright's ear, Caleb came to me, playing the part of the desperate, struggling artist. He begged me to put in a good word for him. Remembering our shared late nights and the bond we'd forged, I caved. My heart went out to him. Professor Albright's studio only had one entry for the Vanguard Prize, and he chose me. So I was stunned when I saw Caleb's name on the list of semifinalists. His work wasn't nearly strong enough. Then I overheard him talking to someone on the phone. He'd bought his way in, using family money to grease the right palms. He saw the look on my face and begged me again. "Leo, man, I have to do this. A firm in London promised me a senior position if I win. This is my one shot," he pleaded, his eyes wide. "This is the last thing I'll ever ask of you. Please, just don't tell anyone." I remember staring at him for a long, silent moment. In the end, our history won out. I kept his secret. I never imagined that this seemingly earnest mentee would be the one to turn around and accuse me of being a thief. The memory of my own brutal, sent a chill through me, a phantom cold seeping into my bones. My phone buzzed, shaking me from the reverie. The screen lit up with his name, Caleb Reed. A dark suspicion began to form. This wasn't the first time. Every time I'd pause my work, every time I'd hit a creative wall, Caleb's call would come through, always asking how it was going. I'd mistaken it for friendly concern. Now I see. I was a complete and utter fool. I rejected the call and walked out of my private studio. Just outside the door, as if she'd been waiting, was Chloe Jensen. She saw me and her face lit up with a curious, almost cloying sweetness. She hooked her arm through mine. "Leo, are you done already? You're leaving early today." "That's not like you at all," she chirped. "The deadline is only a week away, you know." This innocent-looking girl, who in my past life swore on a stack of Bibles that I was a fraud. When she'd first joined the studio, Professor Albright was swamped preparing for a retrospective, so he'd tasked me with her training. Chloe had gotten in through a connection, an investor's daughter who knew nothing about architecture. Even after things calmed down, Albright wanted nothing to do with her, so she remained my responsibility. I taught her everything. I held nothing back, guiding her hand as she learned to draft, showing her how to turn a two-dimensional drawing into a 3D model. I took her on-site visits to the city's landmarks, explaining the interplay of facade, line, and proportion. After a year, she could finally manage a project on her own. I was her mentor. I had poured so much of myself into her development. For her to betray me like that, thinking about how she always seemed to be asking about my progress, a sickening thought surfaced. Was she the one who leaked my ideas? I let my shoulders slump, erasing the usual confidence from my face and replacing it with a mask of weary frustration. I sighed heavily. The wells run dry, Chloe. I've got nothing, I said, my voice hollow. I'm just going to walk for a bit. Hopefully, I can finish something before the deadline. What? No way, she gasped, her eyes wide with exaggerated shock. You're Leo Vance. You never run out of ideas. You're the best in my book always. I managed a weak, troubled smile and sighed again for good measure. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'll see you later. As soon as I turned my back on her, the mask of despair vanished. I walked to the end of the hall, counted to 15, and then peeked around the corner. Just as I suspected, Chloe was looking around furtively, making sure no one was watching, before slipping silently into my studio. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app linked to the camera in my room. There she was, clear as day. She took out her phone and began snapping pictures of my blueprints from every conceivable angle, even taking a short video. Then she made a call. Caleb, did you get the files I just sent? Is the resolution okay? Do you need more shots? A pause. Oh, and you won't believe this. Leo just told me he's hit a wall. He's completely blocked. What are you going to do now? So was her. She was the leak. No wonder she was so willing to be his false witness. But I still didn't get it. What was in it for her? Her next words gave me the answer. Caleb, I'd do anything for you, she cooed into the phone. You're my boyfriend. Who else would I trust? I don't care about the prize money. I only care about you. A textbook case of being blinded by love. I closed the app, opened my contacts, and dialed Professor Albright. Professor, I'm withdrawing from the competition, I said, my voice firm. I recommend you give my spot to Chloe. Let's see how Caleb Reed wins the grand prize by copying that. The professor's booming, indignant voice blasted through the phone, and I had to hold it an arm's length away. Are you out of your mind, you knucklehead? I put you in this competition, and now you're telling me you want to quit. And give it to your junior? What's her skill level, huh? You know as well as I do she'd just be cannon fodder. Not a chance in hell, Vance. Not on my watch. Now get your ass back to that desk and finish the damn design. That was my professor for you. 60-something and could still run laps around guys half his age. I dodged the real issue, changing the subject. Professor, I thought we only had one entry slot from the studio. How is it that I saw Caleb Reed's name on the semi-finalist list? What? That one simple question was all it took. The gears in his sharp mind were already turning. Hold on. Don't withdraw just yet. Let me look into this, he said, his tone shifting from angry to suspicious. Just promise me you'll announce that Chloe is taking my place, I insisted. It took some convincing, but he finally agreed. The next day, in the studio's morning meeting, Professor Albright had me and Chloe stand at the front of the room. Everyone, as you know, the Vanguard Prize is incredibly important, he began, his expression grim. Unfortunately, due to his current circumstances, our lead designer, Leo, is unable to compete. He paused for dramatic effect. After a long and difficult night of consideration, I've decided that Chloe will take his place. The announcement sent a ripple of shock through the room. Only I remained calm, a faint smile playing on my lips. It was all going according to plan. No way. Professor, Leo is a genius. He's a shoe-in for the win. Caleb was the first to object, jumping to his feet. He sounded genuinely outraged on my behalf. And besides, with all due respect, Chloe's work isn't ready for that level of competition. He was panicking. With me out of the picture, he had nothing left to steal. So Chloe isn't qualified, but who is? You, I asked, my voice laced with mock innocence. Aren't you already on the semi-finalist list anyway? The righteous anger on Caleb's face evaporated, replaced by a flash of guilt. His eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. But then, just as quickly, his expression hardened, and he shot me a glare. He was furious that I'd exposed the secret he'd begged me to keep. Oh man, my brain is fried from all the drafting, I said, laughing it off. I must have misremembered. Forget I said anything. We only have the one spot. My mistake. I turned to the professor. Actually, I think Caleb should take the spot. What do you think, Caleb? My clumsy backpedaling and Caleb's shifty expression made it obvious something was up. Before Caleb could respond, Professor Albright brought his hand down on the table. My decision is final. Chloe competes. As soon as the meeting was over, Caleb cornered me. What the hell was that, Leo? Now everyone knows I'm in the running, he hissed, his eyes burning with fury. He looked like he wanted to throttle me. And what's this about you quitting? I bet everything on you winning this thing. All my savings are riding on you. You have to compete. He wasn't betting on me. He was betting on himself, using my work. Look, I'm serious, I said, my voice low and confidential. I injured my hand. I can't draft, so I can't compete. It's over. I looked at him with wide, apologetic eyes. And I'm so sorry about blurting that out, man. It was an accident. You're not mad at me, are you? I slowly held up my right hand, which was wrapped in a thick gauze bandage. It happened a while back when I was helping you build that last model. My expression was a perfect picture of innocent anguish. He leaned in, examining my hand closely, completely oblivious to the fact that the injury was fake. He muttered a string of curses under his breath before turning and storming away. He didn't see the triumphant smirk that spread across my face the moment he was gone. As if I'd ever just hand over my spot in the competition. Publicly giving the spot to Chloe was just a smokescreen, a little piece of theater me and the professor had cooked up. The day I found her out, I went straight to Professor Albright and told him everything. How Chloe had been sneaking into my studio and sending photos of my designs to Caleb. He was livid, roaring that he wouldn't tolerate that kind of corruption in his studio and that he was going to throw them both out on the street. I managed to calm him down, and we started to lay the trap. Not only that, but the professor had already given a heads up to a few of his old friends on the judging committee. The submission deadline would be the day Caleb Reed's career went down in flames. For the rest of the week, Professor Albright kept a close eye on Chloe and Caleb, giving me regular updates on their progress. Caleb's new design doesn't look anything like yours, he told me over the phone. Did the plagiarism plan fail? So he's trying to do it himself? Probably, I replied. The rest of my original design was the most complex part. If he tried to finish it himself, it would just be a Frankenstein's monster of a building. With the professor watching them, I stopped wasting my energy on their drama and focused on revising my own design. Now that I didn't have a mole leaking my every move, I was aiming for nothing less than victory. My original concept had been a fusion of Eastern and Western architectural styles. But now, I was going all in on a design that was purely inspired by classical Chinese aesthetics, reinterpreted with cutting-edge, modern materials and techniques. The week flew by. Today was the deadline. I uploaded my final submission, a design I was immensely proud of, and waited for the email confirming my advancement to the finals. An hour later, my phone rang. It was the competition committee. The caller's tone was grave. He told me and Professor Albright to come to their headquarters immediately. Your two designs are identical, the president of the committee said, his eyes drilling into Caleb and me. We're going to need a plausible explanation. I'd assumed when the professor mentioned Caleb's new design, he meant it was just highly similar, since he would have started with my stolen concept. I never imagined this. Mr. President, Caleb Reed plagiarized my work, I declared, my voice ringing with confidence. My conviction seemed to sway him. His suspicious gaze shifted to Caleb. I expected him to look panicked, guilty. Instead, he looked even more self-righteous than I did. I did not plagiarize, he said, his voice firm. Every line, every concept, it all came from me. Seeing his refusal to back down, I pulled out the big gun, the video recording of me drafting the design. The footage clearly showed my face and my hands moving skillfully across the page. I shot him a challenging look, waiting for him to crumble. But his expression was unreadable. A strange smile played on his lips. He then produced his own video file and handed it to the president. After watching Caleb's recording, the faces of the president and the other committee members turned grim. They kept looking back and forth between the two videos, their brows furrowed in concentration. Finally, the president shook his head, his eyes filled with disappointment. He shot a look in my direction, a look of pure accusation. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Mr. President, I asked, my voice trembling slightly, may I see his video? He nodded. I leaned over to watch. The recording showed the exact same design, the same process, the same hand movements. The only difference was the background. But the most damning detail was the timestamp in the corner of the screen. It was dated 1 hour before mine. My eyes widened in disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How was this possible? I had the professor watching both of them. Caleb's voice was dripping with false sympathy. Leo, I can't believe it. A so-called genius, plagiarizing his mentee's work. I'm so disappointed in you. He then turned to the professor. Professor, you always favored him in the studio. You gave him all the best resources and Chloe, and I never complained. But now you're helping him accuse me of plagiarism? It's heartbreaking. His words were sharp, each one a calculated blow. After seeing the evidence, even the committee members were looking at me with disdain. I was speechless. Professor Albright, a man of his age and stature, was now mired in this scandal. But he still believed in me. I refused to believe Leo would do this, he argued fiercely. His talent far surpasses Caleb's. He has no reason to plagiarize. And look at the style. It's a perfect match for his previous work. The committee hesitated, but Caleb pressed his advantage. How do you fake a time-stamped video? The president slammed his hand on the table. We'll send both videos to a digital forensics team. They'll tell us if there's any trace of tampering. We all assumed one of the videos had to be a fake. But the results came back. Both videos were clean. No signs of editing, no manipulation. His timestamp was impossibly earlier than mine. The professor and I left in a daze, utterly defeated. I was disqualified from the competition and banned from all future architectural design events. Within a day, the news was everywhere. My Twitter mentions were a fire hose of hate. Even the professor's university faculty page was flooded with curses. Plagiarist scum, get out of the industry. Hope you get hit by a bus. A genius. Who needs to steal from his junior? I think we know who the real talent is. Enjoy living in someone else's shadow. What a joke. This so-called titan of architecture is covering for a thief. I'll be sure to steer clear of his firm. He copied it exactly. What? Did he just hit Control+C? Moron. The entrance to our studio was pelted with garbage, rotten tomatoes, and eggs. Anyone who tried to leave was harassed by Caleb's newfound online fanbase. Professor, why hasn't that thief Leo Vance been kicked out of the studio yet? Yeah, we're all getting dragged through the mud because of him. Did you guys hear? Caleb got picked up by that other big shot firm. He offered me a job there with a huge raise. Me too. I already took it. Better than being associated with a team of plagiarists. Just like that, the studio emptied out. Everyone was gone. I sat alone in the silent drafting room, my mind racing, trying to figure out how it all went wrong. Suddenly, Caleb's voice echoed from behind me. The higher you climb, the harder you fall, Leo. Thanks for letting me use your reputation as my stepping stone. How did you copy my work? I snarled, spinning around to face him. He chuckled. Don't get it twisted, my friend. You copied me. I stared at him, my fists clenched. After a moment, a slow, cold smile spread across my face. You can steal a single design, but you can't steal a career. Without me, do you really think you can win? I taunted him. I don't know what kind of trick you pulled, but you can't build a life on plagiarism. He didn't flinch. He didn't lose as cool as I expected. Don't worry about me, Leo, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Just sit back and watch me take home that trophy. We'll see about that, I sneered. After he left, I remembered the security camera footage. I immediately went to the competition committee and filed an appeal. I have video evidence of my junior colleague photographing my designs and sending them to Caleb Reed, I announced. I request a live, public design challenge to settle this. They reviewed my evidence, and, after a vote, they agreed to give me one last chance. The topic for the challenge was chosen by the committee over the course of a week to ensure secrecy. The day of the live stream, I dressed meticulously. I was composed, sharp, showing no signs of the public crucifixion I'd endured. Let's see how you plan to copy me now, with the whole world watching. We were given 1 hour, starting at the same time. The prompt was straightforward: design a boutique beach resort. Simple, but a true test of creative flair and technical skill. My inspiration came from the classical art of the East: vermilion pillars and teal-tiled roofs, with eaves that swooped like the wings of swallow. The warm, rich color palette would stand in beautiful contrast to the blue of the ocean. My hotel was a tranquil, painted scroll brought to life. Caleb, meanwhile, went with a Western-style design. A clean, minimalist white facade with romantic arched windows. A blue infinity pool mirrored the sea, and the gardens were bursting with vibrant flowers. After I finished, I watched him work. Suddenly, one of his movements caught my eye. It was subtle, but it was wrong. Everyone has their own unique drafting habits, a rhythm to their work. I always start with a light outline of the entire structure to get the composition right before filling in the details. But Caleb, in all the years I'd worked with him, always started with one small, detailed section and expanded outward. But now, he was using a completely different technique. And that posture, that specific way of holding the pencil, it reminded me of someone. His name was Julian Croft. In college, he was the other big name in our architecture program. We were friends and rivals, constantly pushing each other. We spent enough time drafting side by side that I knew his style as well as my own. After graduation, he moved to Europe to study under a master architect, the same one who was now, I suspected, Caleb's new mentor. After I was accused of plagiarism, most of the people from our studio, including Chloe, had flocked to Caleb's new firm. When the hour was up, I pointed out the discrepancy. Caleb's drafting style is completely different from his usual method. It's impossible for someone to fundamentally change their technique overnight. I presented a portfolio to the judges. These are designs Caleb did in college and during his time at Professor Albright's studio. You can compare for yourselves. I refuse to believe he has the skill to produce the work he did today. For the first time, a flicker of panic crossed his face. His eyes darted away, a hint of a man hiding a secret. "You're talking nonsense," he blustered. "If I was plagiarizing, how could I have drawn it live on the spot? You're going to disqualify me based on something as subjective as drafting habits? Sounds to me like you bought off the committee." The committee members bristled at the accusation. "That's enough," one of them snapped. "We are impartial, but the discrepancy in both style and skill level is a valid concern. Furthermore, Mr. Vance has provided evidence of you soliciting his designs from a third party." While the committee deliberated, my mind churned. In my past life and now, his evidence was always time-stamped 1 hour ahead of mine. If Chloe stole the physical drafts, that was one thing. But how could he fake the video? There was something unnatural happening with him, something beyond simple theft. I was certain he had some kind of precognitive ability, but it was limited to exactly 1 hour. Last time, he copied my design, mimicking my drafting posture perfectly. This time, he was imitating Julian Croft. I was reborn. It stood to reason he could have a dark secret of his own. Was it? Copy and paste. Thinking back, it felt like that. How else could he replicate a design one-to-one? But I was willing to bet his ability had limits. He couldn't copy just anyone. I just needed to figure out how many people he could target. The committee's discussion ended in a stalemate. They couldn't definitively prove who plagiarized him. He had his time-stamped video. I had my evidence of his conspiracy. It was a case of he said, but at least they reinstated my eligibility to compete. The comments on the live stream were no longer a one-sided assault. "Okay, Leo Vance has a point. There's a thief here, and I'm starting to think it's Caleb." Same here. As an architecture student, what Leo's saying about muscle memory and drafting style makes total sense. But habits are subjective. A timestamp video is hard evidence. I still think Leo's the plagiarist. This season's Vanguard prize is wild. My boy Caleb would never plagiarize. Leo Vance is obviously a snake who paid off the judges. On that note, I hired a social media firm to amplify the negative comments against me. I hadn't forgotten that Caleb claimed to have bet all his savings on me winning. "Professor," I said, meeting him later that day, "I need your help with something." With his name cleared, Professor Albright was back to his usual energetic self. "Anything, Leo. I've taught some of the best in the business, and I'll be damned if I let that backstabbing little weasel ruin my legacy." He ran off to my oldest rival. "Oh, he's going to regret that." I chuckled. "Professor, I need you to investigate someone for me. Julian Croft. I suspect Caleb plagiarized his work during the live challenge." The professor thought for a moment, then nodded. "Why him specifically?" I smiled enigmatically, keeping my theory to myself for now. The social media campaign was a roaring success. 80% of the online chatter was now firmly in Caleb's camp. Seeing the tide of public opinion turn in his favor, Caleb started live streaming from his new studio, playing the victim and showing off his skills. My mentor, Leo, he was always putting me down in college. He said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I wasn't a natural talent, but he didn't have to tell me my work was worthless. The chat flooded with sympathy. OMG, Caleb. I had no idea you went through that. He was just gaslighting you because he was threatened. Your work is amazing. Caleb continued, wiping a fake tear from his eye. I never thought someone as brilliant as him would stoop to stealing my ideas. Not only that, but he made me do all the grunt work in the studio. He threatened to get me kicked out if I didn't help him finish his projects. Professor Albright only ever listened to Leo. Chloe and I were completely ignored. I only am where I am today because my new mentor believed in me. His followers ate it up. Any comment that questioned his narrative was immediately deleted, the user banned. I watched his live stream, a slow smile spreading across my face. Let him ride the wave of public opinion. The same tide that lifts you up can just as easily pull you under. ####10 before the finals. The annual Architecture Guild Summit was held in a massive downtown ballroom. It was the event of the year, crawling with industry titans and deep-pocketed investors. Professor Albright had insisted I attend, even telling me to buy a new suit. He guided me through the glittering crowd, introducing me to firm partners and renowned architects. He never once mentioned the plagiarism scandal, and everyone else, out of respect for him, followed his lead. The industry gives a lot of weight to a man like Professor Albright. But beneath the polite smiles and handshakes, I could feel the whispers. When the professor stepped away to talk to an old colleague, a young, impeccably dressed woman approached me. She moved with an easy confidence, her eyes scanning the room before locking onto me. She walked right up and get straight to the point. You're Leo Vance? You're the one who plagiarized Caleb's design. Despite her accusatory tone, I remained polite. I never plagiarized his work. If you're here to defend him, you're wasting your time. She scowled. Chloe and Caleb told me everything. You're the thief. With that, she grabbed my wrist and tried to drag me across the room toward Caleb, demanding I apologize. I pulled my arm away. Ma'am, please be reasonable. The competition committee has already cleared my name. For all I know, you bribed them. Just then, Caleb appeared, a confident smirk on his face, with a giddy Chloe clinging to his arm. They'd seen the commotion. Chloe's voice was sharp. Leo, what are you doing? Why are you bullying Sophia? I saw you push her from across the room. She rushed to the woman's side. Sophia, are you okay? I told you not to mess with him. He has a terrible temper. Since when did I have that reputation? I was just trying to get him to apologize to Caleb, and he was so rude, the woman, Sophia, complained. Sophia, thank you for standing up for me, Caleb said with a heavy sigh. But it's okay. He was my mentor, after all. I don't want to force the issue. I'd heard rumors that Caleb was being pursued by the heiress to the Wexler construction empire. This must be her, Sophia Wexler. Caleb, I already spoke to my father, Sophia said, hugging his arm tightly. He said that as soon as you win the Vanguard, he'll approve our engagement. Caleb's face lit up. He tapped her playfully on the nose. It's a deal. I'll win the prize, and then I'll make you my wife. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chloe's face twist into a mask of pure hatred, her eyes fixed on where Sophia's hand clutched Caleb's arm. Wait a minute. Weren't Chloe and Caleb a couple? Deciding this was a show worth watching, I stayed silent. Caleb's sweet nothings had Sophia completely snowed. She turned back to me, her eyes filled with venom. Some people have no shame, she sneered. If I were accused of plagiarism, I would have died of embarrassment. And I can't believe they let just anyone into an exclusive event like this. When I didn't respond, she got even angrier. She snatched a glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray and flung its contents at me. The cold liquid soaked through my suit jacket. Before I could say a word, she snapped, Security! Get him out of here! Caleb watched with undisguised glee as two guards approached me. Leo, Sophie is just a little hot-headed. Don't take it personally. The security guards hesitated, clearly not wanting to offend Sophia Wexler. The commotion had drawn the attention of the entire room. Professor Albright saw what was happening and hurried over. I stood there, dripping with wine, the object of 100 stares, my own gaze as cold as ice. The professor moved to stand in front of me, ready to defend me, but I put a hand on his arm. "I've got this, Professor." I switched places with him, then fixed my gaze on the trio. "Miss Wexler, I know there are a lot of people in this world who are blinded by love, but I never expected to find two of them standing right in front of me." "What are you talking about?" "Are you and my former mentee, Caleb Reed, officially a couple?" I cut her off. Hearing the question, she blushed slightly and lifted her chin. "So what if we are?" "You got good eyes." I let out a short, harsh laugh that echoed in the sudden silence. "Because as far as I know, Caleb and my other mentee, Chloe, have been together for a while now." "Did you know that, Miss Wexler? Or did they tell you they were just close colleagues? That they were like brother and sister?" I let my eyes drift to Chloe. In the studio, I often saw them wrapped up in each other's arms. Sophia froze, her eyes widening. "How did you know what they told me?" She was starting to doubt them. She turned to Caleb, demanding an explanation. Caleb's face was red with rage. "I respected you as my mentor, and you spread these lies about me and Chloe," he yelled. "We're colleagues, that's it. You're just trying to stir up trouble. You're just bitter because I exposed you as a plagiarist." Chloe, who had been looking guilty, now looked furious. "That's right. Leo, you've gone too far." The crowd started murmuring, their judgment shifting back towards me. My professor's reputation was taking another hit. I threw my head back and laughed, then pulled out my phone and cast the security footage of Chloe stealing my designs to the large screens around the ballroom. The room fell silent. Sophia, her face a mixture of shock and fury, stared at Caleb and Chloe, demanding an answer. Caleb, ever the quick thinker, recovered first. "That's obviously a deep fake." He grabbed Sophia's face, forcing her to look at him. "Sophia, you have to believe me. You're the only one I've ever loved." "A deep fake? Is that what you call it when you play two women at the same time?" I said calmly, "Telling Chloe that you're just playing Sophia for her money, that she's the only one you love. Then telling Sophia that you and Chloe are just friends. You must think they're both fools." That was the last straw. Caleb lunged at me, his fist connecting with my jaw. The impact sent a sharp pain through my cheek, and I tasted blood. I wasn't going to hold back anymore. I was a trained boxer. He was just a hothead. I ducked his next punch and drove my fist in his gut. We traded blows, a flurry of motion. I saw an opening and launched a roundhouse kick. He blocked it with his forearm, but stumbled back, crashing into a dessert table. I was on him in an instant, pinning him down. I grabbed the collar of his shirt and landed 2 solid punches to his stomach. "What's the matter? Did I hit a nerve, you coward?" I snarled. I stood up, straightened my ruined suit, and gave a nod of apology to the stunned onlookers. Then I turned to Sophia. "Miss Wexler, if you don't believe me, you can check for yourself. For instance, ask them where they were for an hour just before this gala started. Or you could check the registry at the Orion Hotel from a week ago." I looked back at Caleb, pinned under the wreckage of a tiramisu. "Like I said, Caleb, the truth always comes out." #####12 a few days after the summit. I received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Vance? Thank you for what you did. My father said that since you helped me, our family owes you a favor." It was Sophia Wexler. A smile touched my lips. My gamble had paid off. "Miss Wexler, I'm not one to refuse such a generous offer," I said. "I have just one request. I need you to find Julian Croft." Julian was the architect whose work Caleb had copied during the live challenge. I'd asked Professor Albright to look for him, but Caleb was extremely careful. All the professor could find was that Caleb had taken Julian somewhere, but the trail went cold. The professor's influence was limited to the world of architecture. To beat Caleb, I needed Julian. That's when I'd heard the news about Caleb and Sophia. In my past life, Caleb did marry her after winning the Vanguard Prize. But before I died, he'd orchestrated her father's death and seized control of the Wexler Empire. Just before the finals, I finally got the call I was waiting for. "We found him. When do you want to meet?" Sophia asked. "Thank you, Miss Wexler. Today will be perfect. And please be discreet. We can't let Caleb know." When Sophia brought Julian Croft to my apartment, Professor Albright and I were already waiting. Julian was much thinner than I remembered from college, his face gaunt and haunted. After a few brief pleasantries, I got right to it. I've asked you all here today because I have a theory. It's going to sound insane, but I need you to believe me, I said, taking a deep breath. I think Caleb Reed has the ability to copy things. The room fell silent. Professor Albright reached out and felt my forehead. Leo, are you running a fever? Sophia just stared at me, her expression a mixture of pity and annoyance. Did the stress finally get to you? Are you delusional? Only Julian remained silent, his brow furrowed in thought. Then he spoke. I think he's right. All eyes turned to him. I know why you were looking for me, Leo, he said. That design from the live challenge. I knew it was yours the moment I saw the semifinal submission. During the challenge, Caleb had me in a room, watching the prompt on a monitor and drafting. I didn't understand why until I saw his final product was identical to mine. Sophia gasped. What? Julian sighed. He threatened my family. I didn't have a choice. Once we had the full story, I laid out my plan. We had one last chance, the finals. Hashtag 13 after all the controversy. The committee had changed the format for the final round. All 10 finalists would be sequestered in individual, glass-walled studios, monitored by 360-degree cameras. The entire process would be live-streamed for the world to see. We were forbidden from bringing anything in or taking anything out. After the fiasco with Sophia, Caleb hated me more than ever. When he saw me in the waiting area, he strode right up to me. Some people should just give up while they're ahead, he sneered. Save themselves the public humiliation. This time the prize is mine. A thief is a thief, I retorted with a smile. Big talk won't change that. Don't get cocky, he snarled. As I turned to walk to my studio, he lunged from behind, striking my right hand with a vicious, calculated blow. A searing pain shot up my arm. I cradled my wrist. What the hell was that? He just smirked, his eyes cold. Oops, my hand slipped. You're not going to make a big deal about it, are you, Leo? Next time you stick your nose where it doesn't belong, it'll be more than just a little knock on the wrist. He sauntered off toward his own studio. I rubbed my wrist, which was already starting to swell. The competition was about to start. I entered my studio, but didn't pick up my pencil. We had 3 hours. Plenty of time. The competition began at 9 a.m. sharp. I sat perfectly still. My right hand was already twice its normal size, throbbing with pain. It was agony to even hold a pencil. But if Caleb thought this would stop me, he was sorely mistaken. I picked up a pencil with my left hand and began practicing on a scrap sheet. I waited until exactly 10 a.m. before I started to draw. The final theme was to draft a concept for a modern courtyard garden. My inspiration was a classical Chinese garden built around the layout of a Sihiyuan. The main hall was stately and elegant, with ornate carvings. The east and west wings were symmetrical, connected by covered walkways. In the center, a small rock garden and a koi pond, surrounded by bamboo, creating an atmosphere of serene tranquility. It took me just 1 hour to complete the design. After submitting it, I walked out of my studio with a smile on my face. Professor Albright and Sophia were waiting for me in the lounge. I gave them a slight nod. The plan was a success. Hashtag 14 when Caleb emerged from his studio. His face was a thundercloud of rage. He shot me a look that could kill. I looked back at him, mouthing 2 simple words. That's it. He completely lost it. If his handlers hadn't restrained him, he would have charged me. After lunch, the committee gathered all the finalists for the live judging. We have a serious issue, the president announced, his face grave. We have discovered a case of plagiarism among our finalists, and the method used was particularly clever. The live stream chat exploded with accusations. The social media team Sophia had hired went to work, flooding the comments with my name. It's got to be Leo Vance. He's done it twice now. Only Leo would pull something like this. He must have bugged Caleb's studio. Kick Leo Vance out of the competition. Get out, plagiarist. The more they cursed my name, the wider my smile grew. The committee president let the suspense build before finally revealing the name. The plagiarist is Caleb Reed. As you can all see from the live stream, he drew 2 separate designs. He destroyed the first one, but our technicians were able to reconstruct it. And that design is identical to the one submitted by Leo Vance. Caleb's jaw dropped. He looked utterly bewildered. That's impossible. I finished my first draft at 9, and started the second at 10. If anyone plagiarized, it was Leo. You must have taken a bribe from him. Caleb's new mentor stood up, protesting loudly. Are you just targeting Caleb because he's an easy target? This is slander. The chat pivoted instantly, now accusing me and the committee of corruption. The president cleared his throat. On this identical design, the signature reads drawn by Leo Vance. If it was your own design, Mr. Reed, why would you sign another artist's name? Caleb stammered, unable to answer. After a moment, he found his voice. I was mocking him. I signed it and then tore it up. The president nodded as if he believed him. I see. And what about your second design? The one you copied from another artist? Caleb froze, his face a mask of pure shock. He swept everything off the table in front of him and slammed his fist down. Impossible. You're framing me. I couldn't help but let out a small, derisive laugh. Caleb saw my expression and pointed a trembling finger at me. It was you. This is your fault. At that moment, a figure emerged from backstage. It was Julian Croft. #####15. Seeing Julian, Caleb's face contorted in panic. What are you doing here? Julian smirked. I bet you never thought you'd see me again. He turned to face the cameras and told the world everything. How Caleb had held his family hostage and forced him to be his ghost designer. Caleb knew I wouldn't give him another chance to copy me, so he found a new victim. He used Julian's family to force him to sit backstage during every challenge, drawing in real time so Caleb could copy him on stage. Before the finals, Professor Albright had proposed a new competition format to the committee, including the 3-hour time limit. Sophia had used her family's resources to locate and rescue Julian's family. The police were already on their way to Caleb's mentor's firm. With his family safe, Julian no longer had to fear Caleb's threats. We worked with the committee to have Julian draw backstage, under their supervision. I had deliberately provoked Caleb before the match, knowing his vengeful nature would compel him to copy my design first, just to spite me. But I started drawing at 10, signing my name to the booby trap design. His strange ability was limited to the preceding hour. Julian, meanwhile, didn't start drawing until 11. This forced Caleb to start copying him at 10. By the time he submitted, he had no time to realize the trap he'd fallen into. What I hadn't realized before was that once his copying process started, he couldn't stop at midway. You probably didn't realize, I said, my voice cutting through the silence, that the design you copied from me? I'd already drawn it yesterday and submitted it to the committee as proof. Did you really not notice my name signed at the bottom when you were copying it? Some things just aren't meant to be yours, Caleb. Realizing he was completely exposed, Caleb began to tremble. The committee president made the final announcement. For repeated acts of plagiarism, Caleb Reed is disqualified. The winner of the Vanguard Prize is Leo Vance. As the words were spoken, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of golden light leave Caleb's body and vanish into the air. He completely broke. All the money he'd bet on himself was gone. The loan sharks he'd borrowed from would be coming for him. Like a cornered animal, he looked around wildly, then snatched a utility knife from a nearby toolbox and grabbed Chloe, holding the blade to her throat. Don't move, he screamed, his eyes crazed. I'll kill her if you come any closer. Chloe shrieked in terror. Shut up. Everybody back off. I'm the winner. This can't be happening. He raved. He pointed the knife at me. Leo Vance. You're going to kill yourself, or she dies. He held me at knife point from across the room, his other hand choking the life out of Chloe. When the police arrived, that's the scene they walked into. They tried to talk him down, but it was no use. His only demand was that I die. The standoff dragged on. Finally, the lead officer gave a subtle signal to a sniper positioned on a nearby rooftop. A single, sharp crack echoed through the room. Caleb collapsed, a pool of blood spreading out from under him. The sight of his violent death was too much for Chloe. She fainted. The police later told me that when she woke up, her mind was gone. She just kept screaming for someone not to kill her. Julian came to thank me before he left, saying he was moving his family to another state to start over. At the award ceremony, the committee president handed me the gleaming gold trophy. I accepted it, and, as I looked out at the crowd, I told them all that true artistry could never be stolen. My career as an architect was just beginning.